Welcome back. Pints and Politics, episode 53.
That's right, baby.
What episode are we going with on this one?
Oh, it's got to be Pouncey.
Marquise Pouncey from the Steelers.
Yep, from the SEC Power Florida Gators.
Yeah, Aaron Hernandez crew. Right.
Oh, boy.
Or you could say Tim Tebow crew, whichever one,
if
like good or bad.
If you haven't seen the 30 for 30?
Yeah.
On that whole Florida Gators era, go watch it. Check it out. It's a great couple series documentary. I've watched it on Netflix, actually.
A lot of good players.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, man. Tim Tebow is the headliner, obviously. But, yeah, the Pouncey brothers were there. A lot of great defensive players. Aaron Hernandez,
of course,
was also infamously there. So, but anyway, welcome to the Pouncey episode.
Let's thank our sponsors,
Yeah.
Comer Distributing. Today, the Garage Beer with Lime was so good last week.
Yep.
Today, we're trying the Garage Beer
The
Lager.
classic lager. Cheers.
Cheers.
So this is probably going to be just like your Bud Light.
Just for the new listeners, I do not drink Bud Light. Never have.
Whatever, man.
I'm not one of those that turned it into the social issue. I don't drink Bud Light to begin with.
The OG2 know. The OG2 listeners know that you love some Bud Light. You are a pocket Bud Light fan.
Well, we had
Hey, but you know what? What do you think about the beer?
I actually like it. Very light.
It's a fuller flavor. This is not... I mean, the can says Garage Beer, classic small batch brew, light beer. Only 95 calories.
It reminds me of the original Michelob Light, not Mick Ultra.
Yeah, it's got a fuller flavor, almost like a banquet.
Yeah.
You know? It's a fuller flavor light beer. So
It's a tan jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So if you enjoy a banquet beer,
Khaki jacket,
you may want to check out Garage Beer Classic Light Beer. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially on a warm day like today.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, Southern seasons when it comes to, going into winter or coming out of winter, man, it'll fool you sometimes, man. You got 2 or 3 days of like 75 degrees and then it's 40 the next day. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
And
False spring.
It's either a head cold or something from the pollen, or it's just the flu cold stuff still going around when it's 40 degrees on those days, man. I tell you, we don't raise no wimps down here. We got to make sure your immune system is battle tested. Speaking of battle tested, budget week, man.
Very, very, very long. But I mean, this is our third budget we participated in.
Yep.
And I think the most important thing for people to understand, because the narrative is, well, the budget goes up every year.
Yeah.
Just as with anything else, the budget is based on percentages and the income that's collected. Mm-hmm. So if the state is in good health, the budget is going to go up, and then we cut from there. Yeah. So, the narrative is that it went up 10%. So even if this budget was, $14 billion?
Yeah.
And this is just the first part. Overall budget will be a lot more than that. But even if we gave back $14 billion to the taxpayers, and it was 100%, so the tax cut is in there, the budget is still going to increase regardless.
Well, and look, I would equate it like this. For the two listeners out there, take your salary, what you're making this year. If you are a, salaried employee, or if you're an hourly employee, the question would be, are you making the same ordinary income, personal compensation, whatever you want to call it, today as you were, say, 5 years ago?
Correct.
All right, answer that just to yourself. I would imagine the answer is going to be no. All right, how about this? Is your grocery bill today the same as it was 2, 3, 4 years ago?
Right.
Quiet part out loud, the answer is going to be no, right? So we've all experienced the rising costs of things, and we've all experienced our compensation levels increasing, right? So that's the way I would equate the budget, so everyone could understand it.
And Chairman Bannister did a good chart at the end to explain the number of full-time employees that have gone down.
Yeah.
So we are cutting and getting more efficient, but at the same time, that budget's going to increase based on the income that's coming in.
And I think another important thing for the two listeners to understand is our state budget is balanced every year. Every year.
Yes.
And another thing to think about is when the naysayers are saying Our budget has increased 10% year to year. What they're also including in that is the $1 billion tax cut, okay? Because we have to give that money back. It goes on the line item of the budget. So it's accounted for as part of that 14, portion of the state budget. So we talked about this when we first started this podcast. I think it was around budget time where we had done a couple $100 million tax cut, and 600, I think it was. And they had given, and our colleagues in the Freedom Party had said, included that tax cut as part of the spend, of the swamp spending taxpayer money, and all that jazz. So just that's an important thing to understand, right? I think we did over $800 million in property tax relief and included just over $200 million in personal income tax relief.
Yes.
So I think that's important. So we offered a balanced budget. We passed that focuses on the things that matter. Infrastructure.
The things the governor spoke about.
Tax cuts.
Yeah.
Right. We included another $1,500 a year pay raise for starting teachers.
And the governor wanted it $3,000. We just couldn't afford. Next year they will be at that $50,000 mark.
Yep.
And should
minimum,
be there.
Minimum starting. Yeah. So there was a lot of things in there. Supporting our law enforcement, obviously, as well. We had some money in there for for school resource officers, making sure our schools are
more
protected.
money for roads.
Yeah. And so, and again, back out a little bit, a lot of what we heard was sort of these abstract policy things of this budget is growing government, right? And, let's unpack that a little bit. When we talk about growing government, and I wanted to ask this of Representative Cromer and Representative, I believe it was Pace, and then Representative Joe White, who was up there, when they kept going back to this growing government, I wanted to ask some questions, but I was way down on the list. And then by the time it got to me, in fairness to Representative Cromer, she got a little spicy because she was getting questions. I think she felt like she was being attacked, right? When she was getting some questions from Representative Gatch, Representative Caskey, Representative Newton, because, and again, this is a whole nother layer to this, these amendments were thrown on the desk as we gabbled in.
Right.
So there was
not shared or discussed.
The authors of these amendments did not collaborate, did not want to show their cards prior to us going into session. And so there was a lot of discovery involved in these questions, right? So when Freedom Party members are throwing out these amendments and coming to the well to talk about them, this is the first time we're all seeing them.
And some of them sound good.
And so there was a lot of this back and forth. There was some frustration, I think, from some of our Republican caucus members about the stunt that was being played. But again, let's get back to this growing government. So my question that I wanted to ask, because they kept talking about growing government, is let's all understand that. Let's take Rock Hill, for example. That exit 82 on Cherry Road. We have got local and state funding. Got the State Infrastructure Bank to commit, and we had that thing priced and paid for at around $85 million. Well, by the time we get around to constructing it, to actually building it, guess what the price is? It's going to be $120, $125 million.
Yeah.
Okay? So the delta from when the design started, when we got the financial commitments, to where we're actually going to build it, the difference is going to be $40, $45 million. Now, that's just a rise. That's just a rise in the cost, right? So my question is that growing government? Is that growing government? Is that $45 million monetary value growing government? It's the same thing that we had designed 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? But the costs of things, the cost to build roads and bridges has gone dramatically up since COVID.
Yes.
Okay? That's not growing government. We didn't add all these. We didn't pile on a bunch of new stuff into a budget, right? And that was just one example that's local here.
Well, and the other thing is every amendment that was offered, what people don't realize is no amendment was going to lower that total amount. They were just moving from one category to the other because we have to have a balanced budget.
Yeah, right.
So the only way to lower that total amount is to do tax reform on the percentage level.
Yep.
That way we're lowering the amount that we collect. But during the budget process, we can't change how much we are collecting. That takes law to do so.
Yeah, and so that was a thing that I don't know if that fully got across to Representative Cromer, because I think that's what Gatch was trying to make the point of, hey, we're not adding full-time employees,
Right,
to say Health and Human Services, right? This is literally the same number, or maybe, but their compensation levels.
You run a company.
Yes.
And the average compensation that goes up is usually, at minimum 2.5% whenever you're giving raises, right?
Yeah, I think in the competitive market that I'm in construction, it's more.
Okay.
I mean, our guys look anywhere from 5 to 10%.
Right. So, I mean, even if you just did full-time employees, you're looking at a significant increase there.
Correct.
Without adding a single position.
Yeah. And again, I think Representative Neil Collins, who was on the Ways and Means Committee, took Representative Kilmartin to task on this. Representative Kilmartin is a bar restaurant owner, right?
Yes.
And he's got a smoke shop, like a cigar lounge type place.
He's a business owner.
Representative Collins asked him, Neil said, hey, Jay, you're sitting here. Again, that was a stunt of an amendment for taking a dime.
It's the one that ticked me off the most.
A dime. Yeah. He had an amendment that actually said, let's take a dime out of this line item of the budget. And you could see the stunt that it was.
It was a political stunt because it's either A, they wouldn't remove a dime, or the only thing they would remove is 10 cents from the budget.
Yeah, you could see that was made for TV, right? Yeah. So anyway, you could see Representative Collins was getting frustrated, and he asked Jay specifically. He said, hey, listen, are your costs to running your business the same as it was 2-3 years ago? He goes, oh, God, no. He goes, so what are we talking about? He goes, that is reflective of a increase in the money we have to spend to operate,
the core functions of government, which is what this was going off of the governor's budget. So this will now go over to the Senate. The Senate will add in what needs to be added in. Then it comes back for us to do a final budget.
Yeah. So, again, high level, I thought, kudos to the Ways and Means staff, Ways and Means committee members, because they put in the hard work.
Well, I think we need to explain that process to the listeners that don't understand the budget process. And this goes year-round. Yeah. But the committees for each one of those meet. They have public hearing. They talk with the heads of those agencies to discuss. And many times those heads of the agencies come to us and say, look, we were asking for, $50 million, and they're only giving us 20.
Right.
And during that entire process, the Ways and Means staff then votes and makes their difference to the line items, but you have the input, the public input, to discuss things on the budget and to work with staff so that way they can make sure everything balances out at the end. Then that is what is presented to us on the floor.
Yeah, and while in the off season, a lot of times Ways and Means are getting together and looking at the numbers, looking at the cost of things. Come January, when we come back for session, they're full tilt from go, right?
Yes.
I mean, for us who aren't in the Ways and Means committee, that first week we're again getting our office set up. For me, I was working with our 3M staff to see what bills had been pre-filed and trying to prioritize what we wanted to get done in the first year of the session, right? Ways and Means are already having subcommittee meetings, right? Whether it's higher ed, K through 12, transportation, all the colleges, right? All the state-sponsored colleges all go down and have their time with Nathan Ballantyne's subcommittee, right, on higher education. Heather Crawford from Horry County, she heads up the subcommittee on transportation. Guess what they're talking about from day one? Roads, bridges, that vital infrastructure that our state needs. So
what's being requested and what we can afford.
Absolutely. So they're doing a lot of work on the front end. And here's another thing to consider. All of these public subcommittee meetings that are streamed are also open to members, all members. We are given a schedule of when all the subcommittee meetings are, the rooms, all those things.
Specific email for Ways and Means to make sure every member has that information.
Yep, and we are welcome to join. We can actually go sit at the committee table, and Bruce even told everybody, including folks in the Freedom Party, and said, hey, guys, look, if you have questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
Right? And so the door was open for all of us to do that.
Instead, what we got was one group of people that created their alternative budget.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Which it really frustrates me because I really wonder how many people we serve with. Because I will say, the first year, I didn't understand how the budget worked. But it really makes me question how many people really do not understand how it works. So everything that they offered brings down the total dollar amount zero. They offered $100 million in amendments, or presented those.
Yeah.
That would have saved. Supposedly, what they say. But they would just moved it from one category to another.
Yeah, and, I thought if you're interested, go to Neil Collins' Facebook page. I shared it. You can probably get it on mine as well. He simply asked Representative Beach about his library amendment.
Yeah.
And literally, he led Beach down a path, and he set the trap for him. He said, hey, you realize as our state delegation, we picked these library people, right? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, well, that's false. The county does it. Like, he purposely, because he wanted to demonstrate you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And it was unfortunate for Representative Beach. I like Representative Beach on a personal level. I think you're his desk mate. Y'all are going through a little bit. Y'all are working things out.
We actually talked some this week.
Good. But again, the point was Representative Collins, who's on the Ways and Means Committee, visibly frustrated, took Beach down a path, laid a trap for him, and Beach walked right into it and demonstrated he did not have a grasp of what he was actually talking about.
I thought, and you got to think about it this way. If you know someone is going to present something and they didn't take the time to go before the committee, they didn't take the time to have the research or hear from the heads of the committee, and then they come up and they offer an amendment, even if it sounds great, but you know that the research hasn't been done or the conversation hasn't been had. If that happens, the only way that you can support it is if that person has 100% credibility.
Right.
This person, is somebody that I believe, but
they have work ethic, they open and honest discussions, those types of things.
But instead, we watch, the first person to speak from the Freedom Party was Joe White, and he said he did his research from his lazy boy.
I actually enjoyed, I thought that was pretty funny.
But Chairman Ballantyne did say that he had spoken with Joe about these things.
Yep.
So, that was good, but even though the explanation was there, these amendments were still offered. But the one that infuriated me the most was Representative Kilmartin, because he started off the entire speech for his 10-cent amendment stating how after the first day...
Let's pause again. So just for the two listeners, if you were not paying attention to the budget debate, which I don't blame you, it's a lot of bloviating sometimes, Representative Kilmartin offered up an amendment on a certain section, which I cannot remember, but it literally took a dime.
10 cents.
A dime away from that line item in that section.
Which, that infuriated me because it cost hundreds of dollars just in the printing and the staff and the time that we wasted on the floor.
Of 124 members having to listen to that.
Yeah. Well, not even count members pay, because we don't get paid by the hour.
Oh,
but
no,
every one of those staff members,
about the value
ETV,
of my time.
Yeah.
I value my time more than that.
But it wasn't just that. He started off the amendment process by stating that he went home after day one, after Monday, and his wife asked him, how much did you cut? Oh, we couldn't cut anything. And she's like, not even a dime or not even a quarter or something like that. And he's like, so I figured I would offer this amendment to say, hey, this is just a dime. Well, immediately, the first person to question was Micah. And he said, so you submitted this amendment this morning? No, we submitted it yesterday with all the other amendments.
Oh, really?
So how do you sit there and give a story? Like, you instantly lose any credibility. Right. You opened up your entire presentation on a complete lie to begin with. Yeah. Because if this was done due to a conversation with your wife, as you said, then you would have submitted it that morning. But you didn't. You submitted it the day before. It was all part of your political process. He claimed it wasn't going to be that he was not doing this for political campaigning, and yet the first thing he does is put it online. We couldn't even cut a dime out of the budget. Mm-hmm. And whenever you have someone that is lying to you and not being genuine in their approach of what they're doing, you lose the trust. It may sound great for whatever they're trying to do.
And let's brass tacks it. For this week, it felt like, for our company, we have a Christmas party, right? For our 200 employees, every Christmas, we tried to find a Saturday where we celebrate the year, invite all of our employees, their families, do the whole thing. Well, guess what? We don't start planning the Christmas party in December, right?
Right.
We start planning for it like in August, September. We start making sure we've got all the logistics covered, right? Bounce houses, making sure we got all the food, all the drinks, the photographer, make sure we got the Santa there for the kids. You know what I mean? All this stuff. There's a lot of prep work that goes into the event, right? Well, imagine our staff, we have planning meetings on this, right? Probably have like 4 or 5 before the actual Christmas party. And again, they're not long. So imagine if you had an employee who was in management who never showed up to any of those meetings. And then when they do show up to the Christmas party, all they tell you is how bad it sucks.
Yeah.
Right? And then they give all their reasons why it sucks and how they could have done a better job. But
they offered to change it the day before and you didn't want to change it.
And it's the point of the Freedom Party members seem to they want to declare something that, hey, this is our goal, and then they don't want to work to reach the goal. They just want to tell you, oh, we're trying to cut $1 billion from the budget today, right? And they don't understand that there is a process involved. There is, like what you explained. You and I have tried to build trust in relationships with other members, like just human to human, right? They don't care. They think because they can go down and speak from on high that they want sunshine and lollipops. By God, everyone should have sunshine and lollipops.
It's actually just the opposite. It's the come in, start bashing people. I mean, whenever you're saying the leader's a crook or things like that, and you're bashing people. I mean, April Cromer would not answer questions from the majority leader.
Yeah.
She wants to claim she's a Republican, but you wouldn't answer questions from the majority Republican leader on the floor.
Well, and I thought, Leader Davey Hyatt from over in Pickens did a good job when it came time to speak on, I think, that certain amendment that Ms. Cromer had put up. I think he did a good job finally just saying, let's cut the crap.
Well, right. And I missed April's hour-and-a-half long
back and forth
talking
questions
at the beginning because I was, taking some students around from Catawba Ridge after I introduced them, showing them around the State House. So whenever I walked in, Davey had just wrapped up his speech. So I missed Davey's speech. I missed April's. Yeah. Oh. So I wasn't there for that.
Yeah.
But I had to go back and watch what Davey said. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch what April said.
Well, and to highlight it, Representative Hyatt said he called out the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Right? He called out the personal hypocrisy by saying, because there's a video that's out there that showed that the Cromer businesses, and I think it's her father-in-law, is on video saying, hey, yeah.
Trump can take all the illegals, but let me keep mine.
Yes, correct. But Representative Cromer runs out there and says she's not for illegal immigration, right? She's hard for, send them all back, right?
Yeah.
But not the 5 that her
doesn't she do the hiring, and she?
I don't know. Again, I don't know. I'm just letting the 2 listeners know there's a video out there. You can Google it. You can search it. You find out for yourself if it's true or not, okay? Don't take my word for it. Another one was, Freedom Party members voting against cost mitigation for higher ed, right?
Right.
Not to basically keep college tuition for our in-state students from increasing, right? So it's more affordable. Well, she voted against all that, and then goes to the well and decries how it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Well, guess what? Her kids went to Clemson and enjoyed it.
And she
You know,
didn't complain about it last year.
Now, again, I didn't even know her kids went to Clemson, but I guess Davey did, and he called that out. He's like, wait a minute. So it was good for her kids to use it, taxpayer dollars for that. But now she's saying that she's against it, and it's not good for everyone else's kids. And so it's all of those things of, it's good for me, but not for thee. You know, that type of hypocrisy, I think Dave did a good job of just calling it all out.
He got fed up.
Yeah. Well, and this is his last term. He's spent, 20-something years?
No campaigning involved because he's not running again. I've never seen him speak like that before.
Yeah. No,
in private or public.
Yeah.
I've never seen Davey get fired up like that.
Well, in another one, Brandon Newton.
Yeah.
You know, our assistant majority leader, he is cool as they come.
Yeah.
But I think when there was, we were on the election commission segment of the budget
With Rob.
and Rob Harris puts up a bill to
Not fund any of the election machines.
something like
Go
that.
straight to paper
he thinks
ballots.
so all needs like paper ballots and this, that, and the other. And so, for those who don't know, Brandon Newton is pretty knowledgeable about elections commission and all those things. And, you know, he's the guy I always go to and ask about this type of stuff. Now, just because we've had a presidential election, I know that we have paper ballots.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's fresh on my memory. This past November, I went and picked all my selections, put my card in, it spit it out, and I could read
see it. And then
I can read all my selections. Well, this is the politician of Representative Rob Harris answering this. He should have just answered it honestly and moved on, but he didn't, and it made it a bigger issue because Brandon Newton says, hey, did you go vote in November? Yeah. Okay. When they go and checked your ID and you signed in and all that kind of stuff, what'd they give you? A card? Or, you know, the only thing he didn't want to say is a paper ballot because that's what it would have proved just the idiocy of the amendment, right? And it would have proved Brandon's point, Representative Newton's point. And so you could tell he gets frustrated when Rob finally just walked away because he saw that it was futile and it didn't make him look very smart. And Representative Newton goes up and says, I'd like to speak on the amendment. And he goes, for Representative Harris is afraid to answer the question, I'll answer it for you. It's a piece of paper. You know, and you could tell, like, Brandon had just had enough of it. So to see him and Leader Hyatt and Brandon Newton sort of...
Yeah, and I thought Brandon did very well at the beginning, too, because, Brandon
100%.
works for a university.
Yes.
So he understands the tuition mitigation. And I'm not going to say, I kind of agree. I believe that government involvement in the tuition process just increases the cost. Mm-hmm. And we have watched tuitions raise and raise and raise and raise and raise. So I'm not for cutting some of that stuff out. It's cutting some of that stuff out.
Yeah, correct.
But
I think
whenever you're questioned
you
about
can do it responsibly with a serious look.
Well,
not
and doing
day
it
of.
and having the conversation
Correct.
beforehand. How can we do that? How
Yeah.
can we lower this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that would be a good savings to taxpayers, but I might find some more information that, hey, we're trying to increase the workforce. We want teachers here. We're going to pay for their tuition, and that's done through tuition mitigation.
Correct.
So every law that we pass is going to affect things like that, but we have to pass law to change it.
So let's talk about that for a second. I thought, while I could disagree with Representative Joe White, he didn't get up there and just deliberately mislead the body, right? And that was sort of a difference I saw.
He answered honest.
In Representative Joe White's answers and his presentations versus Representative Pace or Representative Cromer or Representative Harris. All of them are of the Freedom Party, but Joe White, during this budget debate, didn't sit there and try to obfuscate or try to just BS us.
He was just saying, this is what I want to do, this is what I believe, and this is what I'm asking us to do.
Correct. I think he actually even said when we were talking about, I think the section was MUSC, he goes up there to reduce the funding, and he used a simple model of students going to MUSC in the budget, and we're spending way more on MUSC students than, and again, there's a lot of reasons for that, but Representative Rutherford made a good point. He goes, hey, do you realize that this includes the dental school, all these different schools all under the umbrella of MUSC? And Representative White answered him honestly. He goes, no, I didn't. He goes, that actually makes a little more sense now.
Yeah.
You know? Like, he conceded the point, like an adult, responsible person would.
Should.
Where the other ones didn't. And that's what was the frustrating part, was like, you know they're not that dumb. They're just lying. I mean, it was just like, this is made for TV. It is a 30-minute sitcom. Go ahead and bust out the Curb Your Enthusiasm polka music.
Well, they had their AAF guy sitting in the balcony, so that way he could get his clips and send out his text messages.
I tell you, Representative Gatch introducing him was pretty funny. And,
well, I mean, did you get the text message sent out against you? It said that we funded...
I'm sure I did.
What was it? Gay abstract art and pornography in libraries and...
Oh, here's another one. That the state mandates COVID vaccines for kids 5 and up. No, it doesn't. That is a flat out lie. No, it doesn't.
I've got a 6-year-old. He doesn't have a COVID vaccine.
That is a lie. It doesn't do that.
Right.
Our Department of Health does not do that.
They just wanted the wording to say that you could not mandate, even though they don't already do it.
Well, and again, and we'll talk about some of the amendments in the next segment, because I thought Josiah had an amendment that I was like, what in the what? And it literally made me scratch my head. And then also Representative Annie McDaniel, friend of ours. She's she's a Democrat out of like the Fairfield Kershaw area. Get along with her great, but her amendment just had me puzzled, and that led to some drama, I should say,
on the floor
right at the end too.
Yeah,
I thought, going back to Representative Cox, I thought the whole conversation got hijacked by a couple amendments right there late when we were so close to the finish line and getting out of there. And man, one wrong turn and you're in a ditch. So we'll talk about that in the next segment. This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties.
that means you got to be able to add if you're counting right?
Yeah, man. So let's get back after it. The two amendments that I wanted to just sort of highlight was Representative Magnuson brought up an amendment that said state funds cannot be used to mandate students K through 12 mandating a COVID vaccine.
Right.
COVID, I call it the COVID shot. I don't really believe it's a vaccine. But anyway, the COVID shot. And I'm literally scratching my head like, we don't do that. Like, we don't do that now. None of my kids have the COVID shot. And they all go to public school. What are you talking about? And so there's a little bit of confusion. And again, I always...
But it looks good on a flyer. To say they voted against.
And again...
banning mandated vaccines.
I try to I like Josiah. Like, I think he's a real... You know what I mean? I think he
tries to be genuine.
His heart's good, man. But sometimes I just think he gets going down the wrong path. And anyway, so, that comes up. He's at the well. He's getting questions. And I'm turning to, like, everyone on the education. I'm going finding, Chair Lady Erickson, Jeff Bradley, David Vaughn. I'm like, hey, I just want to check my math. We don't mandate kids have to get the COVID shot to go to school. And they're like, yeah, I know. And I'm like,
why isn't anyone asking that?
Yeah. I was like, so one of y'all should ask it. They're like, well, you go ahead. I was like, I'm not on the education committee. And anyway, so to save him, here's another thing that was weighing like in the back of my head was, man, I don't want to ask him this. And then he realized, oh, really? Like, you know what I mean? I didn't want to make him look foolish. So I actually, during some of I think there was a point of order or something. I actually went up to Josiah and like
told him,
whispered in his ear. I was like, hey man, you do understand that we don't mandate that. He goes, yeah, I know. And I go, then what is this addressing? He goes, I just want to make sure. I was like, make sure of what? Make sure of the absence that there is no mandate? He's like, well, just in case.
Kind of the same thing Jermaine did with saying that we're not going to fund any white supremacy groups.
Well, and again, we'll highlight that one too. But again, and this is in, mind you, the proviso section
right.
of the budget. folks, a little PSA for the episode. What a proviso is a 1 year, right? So it's basically as good as law, but it's just for 1 year. It's temporary. So that's why I didn't understand it, because I'm like, wait a minute. You're going to mandate that we don't mandate COVID shots, which we already don't do, and this has got a clock on it immediately. Like, what are we doing? And so, again, besides just wasting our time, right? So, so that one really had my, me scratching my head. The next one was that Annie McDaniel amendment, which basically stated no state funds will be used to fund white supremacy groups.
Yeah.
And I went up and stood on the back wall because at this point it's late in the evening on day 2. My back was hurting from sitting in the chair. And so I'm just holding up the wall in the back.
Just before midnight.
And I'm like, wait, what? What are we doing? And, and again, so I go and try to find some members that can speak intelligently to this. And I said, hey, where do we use state funds? What white supremacy groups are we funding? And they're like, oh, I don't think any. And I'm like, so what's the point of the amendment? Well, we just want to make sure. And I'm like, here we go again.
But it's funny that, now look, we were consistent with voting no on both, but because it wasn't needed. But yet we have many of the Freedom Party that voted for their special exception that they wanted to make, just to be sure. But whenever that came up, no, we're voting no on that. So like us, it was just no, because this isn't needed.
It's not relevant.
With them, it was, no, this isn't as important as the other stuff that we put up.
So, and again, that actually got, I mean, look, again, we speak frankly. We tell folks what happened. Representative Annie McDaniel was hot. Representative Jermaine Johnson was hot. A lot of folks felt like we all should have that was an easy one. That was a layup, and the General Assembly, the House, should have taken the layup. They should have taken the easy shot. But again, trying to be consistent, we don't do that anyway.
So why would we vote for it?
Correct. And I went up to Jermaine, who, again, he was upset, which I understood. But I told him, I was like, Jermaine, look, the way I was reading this amendment was, this is a Freedom Party style making sure amendment for something that wasn't even funded anyway. Like, what is the principal effect, as we heard a lot of?
I mean, it just seemed to me that Uniparty was doing the same type of amendments.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the budget, folks. I mean, we got a little bit of everything.
It was eventful. And I'm going to try to get some clips up, and we're trying to get the information out.
Sorry, Goose.
But there's so much.
Goose.
We
are trying to.
Yeah.
The Republican caucus, who passed the conservative budget, balanced budget, we are going to try to get some stuff out there on social media, because let's be honest, our Freedom Party colleagues do a great job bringing the circus to social media and start spinning. I mean, they were spinning.
They had their campaign guys sitting in the balcony. They were ready to go.
Yeah. So, and let's educate the two listeners on what we saw. And I believe that was this guy, Dan. I don't know his full name. Dan is the face of the Dark Money Group out of Texas, the American Action Fund, that hits us with text messages about how, we're Nancy Pelosi style, wasting tax money on jet-setting events to Epstein Island probably or something. And
this is the same group that has the picture of me with the red X tape over it.
Yeah. So this guy actually sat up in the balcony, and again, I wanted to ask Representative Pace about this, because Representative Pace and I talked prior to session, and I said, look, we were trying to, I guess, agree to a little bit of a détente, a little bit of a ceasefire, and say, hey, if you put your guns down, we'll put our guns down, right? I mean, and this is unofficial, casual.
That's happened over the past 3 years.
Him and I are talking on the phone. And I said, look, Jordan, I tried to be responsible with my language and this, that, and the other. It's you guys who take to social media and just spin crap. And anyway, I brought up this AAF group, and he goes, what? He insisted. That's not us. We don't coordinate. We don't collaborate. We don't. And I said, Jordan, really? And I said, okay, how about this? I'll take you at your word. All right, I'll take you at your word. I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. And I said, I'll take you at your word and we'll see. Well, that came out to be not true. Because literally this, other third-party group was in the balcony, seen collaborating with members of the Freedom Caucus in the lobby about their own amendments.
Yeah.
About their own amendments. And so this guy who is the head of the AAF, it's him and his brother in the basement, coordinating with our...
No, they're part of Young Americans for Liberty. I find this very funny because one of the narratives that Cromer puts out, she likes to call us Trump-opportunist.
Okay.
Right? Well, it's very funny that Donald Trump has really only said we're getting rid of one person in Congress. Like, that's our target. We're getting rid of Thomas Massie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's been public about that. Well, AAF is the big supporter of Thomas Massie. And AAF is a subgroup of Young Americans for Liberty, which is not a Republican organization. It is a libertarian organization.
Yeah. So
that's the real definition of a rhino.
Literally a Republican in name only.
Yeah.
Because you're a libertarian. So I just thought that was pretty wild that this guy is coming to the State House, which I'm glad he did. I welcomed the guy. I mean, it's like, hey, enjoy. But for the Freedom Party members to go out into the lobby and sit right on the rope line just outside our chamber. And, I mean, literally, there's pictures of Thomas Beach and him looking at an amendment or something.
Looking at the language.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So...
Hey, we need this for the...
I guess we are coordinating. So yeah, man. But, I thought it was a overall good week.
Yeah.
We had some bumps in the roads, had some challenges, but I thought across the board... I thought the Republican caucus had some good questions. I thought we, again, trying to be the best stewards of the taxpayer dollars while also investing in the future of South Carolina, passing a conservative, balanced budget. And one other small note is we know some things that maybe other folks don't know, and that's that we have been working on a tax cut bill for a while. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably going to be coming.
Tax cut and our Doge set up
coming in about 2 weeks or so. Looking forward to having that debate.
But it's one thing to just file a bill without any thought. It's another to actually work through it.
Yeah, correct.
And answer the questions before submitting.
As far as our colleagues in the Freedom Party, they actually went live on the back porch during one of the budget debates and said, we're all about cutting taxes. We went to a paltry 6%. They're going to go to 5%. And I chuckled, right? I literally chuckled.
Our realistic tax, or our
you and I
actual
have
tax rate
stated,
is better.
Again, and this is the difference between stating something and then going out and working to do it. We want it 0.
Right.
Right? But I think, in having conversations with members of Ways and Means to understand you want to cut taxes, but you also want to fund core functions of government. And so you don't want to blow a hole in things. But I think we're going to get to 4 sub-4s.
Yeah.
And man, that's a huge tax cut for folks of the state. If we could set a goal for the personal income tax to go from 6 to say 4 or even sub-4s, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be a step in the right direction, which hopefully, let's see how a year or two goes. Maybe we then take it from 4 down to 2 and then 2 to 0. That seems like a reasonable approach for tax cuts, especially with the changes that Trump's making on a federal level where it comes to tariffs versus taxes, property taxes, income taxes, those types of things. We got to see how this economy is going to...
But we have to do that through legislation, not during the budget process.
Yeah, so...
That's the biggest difference. We can't just create law within the budget and do what we want to do whenever we already have a constitution that says that we have to have a balanced budget.
Yep.
And if the law's not passed, you can't just move money around, which you will see if you watch any of it. There's many of those bills that were ruled non-germane. Mm-hmm. And it was, very, very frustrating as we watched the beginning of the budget process. What was proposed was cuts for a college for the tuition mitigation.
Right.
And they were doing that for every one of them, but they withdrew all their own.
Yes.
Like, they lost the debate so bad within the first two.
Well,
that
I saw that in some of the sections as well, where they went up to amend a couple lines or, the section of the budget. They would try to decrease it by this or that or the other. And then when the amendment failed, they then voted for the section.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I tried to call Josiah out on one of them, but he did not vote for it. I think
really?
that was, he was one of the few Freedom Caucus members that sat at the desk and did not choose yes or no. That is the frustrating part.
Right.
But the rest of them, voted against it. And, he was trying to say that we were trying to cut this. And the other narrative that really drives me crazy is, why did every Democrat vote for this budget? Well, first of all, every Democrat did not vote for this budget.
Right.
So that was a false narrative. And it's just a constant false narrative.
Well, again, if that's the litmus test, right? So the Freedom Party and the Democrats voted together on, say,
90%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the House Rules bill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what does that make them? The Uniparty now?
Right.
They're working with leftists.
Yeah.
So,
but that's the way that they spin it.
Yep.
Instead of, I represent my people, this is what I believe for my people, and
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing.
Couple more quick hits as we try to get out of this episode. I did want to talk about upcoming week next
Yes.
week, and then also wanted to talk about what's going on here locally in York County.
Blinded by the lights, wrapped up like a douche.
And see, I was told douche is a bad word all these years.
Well, man, a couple quick hits here. I wanted to talk about what's going on here in York County. We have had some time sitting in our seats down in Columbia. We've been getting peppered with emails and texts from our chairman, Larry Barnett, about how leftists and swampy swamp rhinos,
How the establishment hacked his email.
among other things. And then I didn't even know he had email. But anyway, yeah. So we've been getting peppered with all these emails and text messages about how we're trying to work with leftists, liberals, Stalinists, communists, whatever. Just put whatever leftist label you want about how we're trying to infiltrate the Republican Party. Folks, that's a joke, okay? We want to open up the Republican Party to more people participating in the process, okay? Not less. What they want to do is, if Brandon and I want to run up for re-election next year, Larry Barnett, the chair of the GOP, and the leadership want to be able to go down to Columbia and with some party bosses select who can run up here in York County. Not you and I go pay a filing fee.
Right.
And let's go put in the work, knock on doors, talk to community leaders, and convince them that we have the best ideas for this state. What the York County GOP, that has been hijacked by the Freedom Caucus, what they want you to cede is they want you to cede over your responsibility to them so they can select their cronies to go down to Columbia and pick their disciples to choose who can run for your local representative, your local county council. You name the elected position.
What I find funny about it is they want to call people rhinos or act as if these are Democrats infiltrating the Republican Party. So as they say that about me, I have only ever voted in a Republican primary
Correct.
in the general election.
Correct.
I have been involved in the Republican Party since the early 2000s. I was part of the Tea Party movement, which we were the minority, and I've watched this change happen. But what has happened is it's swung too far to where they're wanting to control. So instead of, we represent each one of our district, 42,000 people,
Yep.
right? So, and granted, 42,000 people in my district are not Republican. But I want to say the number comes out to somewhere around 30,000 of people that could vote in the Republican primary whenever we're looking at it. Instead, what they want is they want the individual elected executive committee members within the local party to decide whether this person is Republican, and then they would take me off the ballot just because I don't join the Freedom Party.
Yeah.
That
Correct.
becomes the big issue. If I don't kneel to those 300 people, and this is the same thing the Democrats did to where they were having problems of people like Hillary Clinton buying off delegates.
Yeah, super delegates.
Yeah. Buying the delegates to just say, oh, keep my competition out of this.
Yeah.
Let's take the voice away from we the people and allowing them to choose.
Yep. So in a nutshell, there's reorg tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We will post all of the meeting locations. I know there's a couple churches here on Anderson and another one that handles a lot of my districts. You got yours.
Mine's over there by the Walmart, church side of the Walmart in Newport.
And so we're going to post all of those locations and a link to those locations on the Pints and Politics website again, and on our personal pages and our representative pages to get that out. We need regular folks. Look, if you care about tax cuts, if you care about better roads and bridges, if you want better teacher pay, okay, go to the reorg and pick a common sense Republican to help lead this local party. If your priority is chemtrails and weather manipulation, okay, or closing primaries or consolidating power to local party bosses, go vote for somebody else, okay? Because that's not us. I think that the priorities...
I kind of believe in the chemtrail.
Well, again, that's for another episode. But I didn't say you don't got to explore it. I'm saying, is it a priority?
Well, and that's what I think is most important. This party who has taken over the past couple of years has eliminated discussion.
Yes.
So they only are inviting Freedom Caucus members to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, we passed the budget last year. Instead of having Dennis Moss, who's on Ways and Means, or Tommy Pope, who's the Speaker Pro Tem, to discuss the budget, they bring in Rob Harris.
Wait a minute. Or how about Chairman Peeler, head of the finance, Senate Finance? I mean, of all people, have Harvey Peeler come down and he will tell you what's going on with the budget. No. Let's bring a first-term freshman Freedom Caucus member from Spartanburg County
to York County to explain to the members what's going on in the budget.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I got to ask, local GOP, how many times you been invited to speak to highlight?
Oh, no. I haven't.
How many?
Yeah, I've had to force
0?
every time I speak.
Okay. I have never been invited to speak.
Right.
Ever. And so that's just funny that we're inviting Freedom Party members from around the state to come talk to our local constituents, but not ever inviting folks who are actually holding local seats in the state delegation. I'm the damn county chair now. I mean, the York County delegation chair, and I've never, ever been asked, like, hey, come down and talk about the delegation's priorities. Tell what's going on down there. Nope.
Don't want to hear from you because you might expose some of the lies.
Well, so the point being, look, at a minimum, we need normal.
We need conservative and normal. And don't try to come to the party reorg if you're a Democrat.
Hey, and let's reach let's reach for some common sense, right?
Yeah.
If you are a business leader, if you've got common sense, if you've got conservative core values, show up, please.
Yeah.
We need normal back here in York County, and we gotta stop the hijack.
Well, I mean, in the Republican Creed, it says, "It is my right to be uncommon, and I kneel before no man save my God." Like, those are, to me, those are the two most important things.
I thought you kneeled to
Larry.
Larry.
Say. I can tell you some people whose knees are probably dirty dealing with Larry, but not me.
Oh, boy. All right, next, we got upcoming next week. Guffey's going on another European vacation. He'll tell you all about it. I'm excited to announce we've got the Pharmacy Benefit Managers Ad Hoc Committee that I'm chairing. We got some great members on that 7-member committee. It's a mixture of LCI and 3M. Man, and we have got an action-packed day. I think we might be there all day. Because it's perfunctory.
You're so excited about it.
And there's no session.
You're like the dorky kid that's like, we got homework.
Hey, man, we got PBMs coming. We've got drug manufacturers coming. We got independent pharmacists coming. We've got corporate pharmacies coming. So we're trying to give you guys a 360 just a total 360 view on this issue and how it impacts drug pricing here in South Carolina and also the country at large. So stay tuned for that. It is going to be live streamed. It starts at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. We're going to have one-on-one testimony and Q&A, and then probably have to break for lunch, come back, and then do a congressional panel.
I'll watch it on my flight to Berlin.
Yeah, so where literally we're going to have drug manufacturers, PBMs, third-party payers, and independent pharmacists all being able to challenge one another while we sort of play referee.
It'll be fun.
So looking forward to that. Again, thanks for watching this 53rd episode of Pints of
You
Politics.
can't log out without talking about me going on vacation.
Oh, man,
I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
going on vacation. I'm going to the European Union to testify. There's 4 days of testifying.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'll be there for that, but we will catch up on that whenever we return. Now you can log us out.
So go check us out, pintsandpolitics.show.
And check out the Seamus and Horton on the record.
Yeah, they kicked off the first episode.
Yeah. I've
tell
listened
ya.
to about half of it so far. There's been some good clips.
I listened to the whole thing. I will say, I got a little set envy. You know, they got a better set than we do. And they're like, you know, they're only one episode
No one's
in.
got a better set than me. What are you talking about?
So anyway, also thanks to our sponsor, Comer Distributing, for supplying the great garage beer.
Nice
classic
light beer.
Light beer. Yeah, again, full flavor, light beer, tastes like Coors Banquet to me.
Yeah.
So,
The khaki jacket.
yep, go check it out, and we'll see you next time.
Sundays. Faster cars, good cigars, better whiskey, instant replay.